All right, UFC 327, full card predictions, starting from the early prelim opener, going to the main card. I'm also going to do some other fights from boxing and from Risen and PFL, so I'm gonna try to get to this UFC card pretty quick, and then we can get to the other picks. So the first fight, we've got Charles Radtke versus Francisco Prado. I'm going with Radtke. I don't think Prado is that bad. I think his boxing is pretty solid. But he is really small. It says he's 5'10" on Tapology. I think that's wrong. I'm fairly confident he's shorter than Charles Radtke. He was at lightweight, and at lightweight he was a kind of big lightweight. I would say probably about an average size lightweight. But he was really slow. And then he went to welterweight, and I feel like he's still pretty slow. And he's also still pretty small. Like, again, I really don't think he's 5'9". His reach is only 69 inches. Pretty short reach. Yeah, and then he's losing decisions to Nikolai Veretennikov, Jake Matthews. I don't think that Charles Radtke is anything great, but I think that he's got a greater chance for a finish, and he's probably got a better chance to win a decision because he's probably better than Nikolai Veretennikov. And the only way Charles Radtke's really lost in the UFC is by getting finished by Mike Mallet and Carlos Prates, which are pretty good fighters. So I expect Radtke to probably win this fight. Maybe by decision. If he uses his length, if he uses his kicks, he could probably keep Prado at bay. And if Prado can't get on the inside, I don't really know what much he can do. And even then, Veretennikov was able to completely neutralize him by just any time he got in boxing range, clinching up. And Prado was just too small. So I think Charles Radtke can do about the same. I feel like he's built similarly to Veretennikov, despite the fact that they're listed at 4 inches of height difference. I really do think Radtke is taller than Prado. I don't know what the fuck the UFC stats are talking about. But yeah, I'll go with Radtke. Next up the card, Kelvin Gastelum versus Vicente Luque. Now, I'm a little conflicted about this because it is definitely the case where both of these fighters are washed. And the question is, who is more washed? And I'm going to have to go with Luque. Now, if this were 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I'm definitely picking Luque. I think he's always been kind of a better fighter than Gastelum, especially when they're both in the same weight class. I think Luque is probably going to be better sans weight cut, but so is Gastelum. Gastelum's always had problems cutting weight. He's missed weight at middleweight and welterweight before, weighing at 191 in his last fight, but he's looked slimmer recently. I try not to take pre-fight stuff into consideration so much, but Kelvin Gastelum being in shape, I think, is important because sometimes he isn't, and that's usually when he looks bad. And Luque just hasn't had a great performance in a while. Against Themagrimbo, he looked good. And Themagrimbo might be a little bit more skilled than today's Kelvin Gastelum, but Themagrimbo's not much of a winner. He usually finds a way to lose in fights, and he was all of his wins in that run he was on before that fight were not very good, and could have been a fluke. It's literally Luque's only moment of success in his last 4 fights, and it was just he caught Themagrimbo right away and finished him. And Luque just really hasn't looked the same since the Jeff Neal fight where he got a brain bleed, which makes me nervous every time he fights because he could very easily die during a fight, and it wouldn't be that absurd. I mean, he literally had a brain bleed, 4 or 5 or was it 6 fights ago. So don't love that. And just in the last fight against Joel Alvarez was, I think, very clearly taking it easy on Luque, not trying to finish him, or not trying to beat him up too bad. He was trying to look for a quick ground and pound TKO finish. He never found the finish, but he was able to dominate Luque from the opening bell to the ending bell. And Luque had literally no success in the fight, spent almost the whole fight in the turtle just getting punched in the back of the head, kind of like Anthony Smith. And I think Gastelum is not much. And also, Luque's losing to Kevin Holland. He's getting submitted in a minute or whatever it was. So I don't love that. And I think Gastelum gets it done, so I'm going to go with Gastelum. Next fight of the card, Marquel Mederos versus Chris Padilla. I'm going to go with Chris Padilla. I think he's a little bit better of a fighter than Marquel Mederos. Mederos looked really good in his last fight, but it was against, what's his name, Mark Chwinski, right? Yeah, Mark Chwinski, who sucks. He was undefeated, but that was his only UFC level fight, and he got obliterated. He did take the fight on short notice, and Mederos' game plan was to use low kicks, which are good against opponents who haven't been conditioning their legs for 8 weeks. So, doesn't say a ton about his performance, but I do think he looked really good in that fight. He's always looked like a pretty technical, clean guy. He's got good takedown defense. He's got good leg kicks. He's got a good 1-2, a good jab, whatever. But I think Chris Padilla is different. He's very versatile. He throws a lot of unique shit. He throws spinning elbows that land well. He caused a doctor stoppage against Rong Zhu by landing an elbow right on his eye, and it swelled up immediately, and they had to call the fight. He was able to break Ishmael Bonfim over the distance. By the way, if you hear someone drumming in the background, there's someone practicing drums in the parking garage I'm in, which I think is a little rude. But I think Chris Padilla, he looked really good. And one thing about MarQuel Mederos is he goes to pretty close decisions kind of often. He's got a couple split decisions, one against Austin Hubbard. I think he had one right before he was on the Contender Series. So he goes to close decisions pretty often, and Chris Padilla is a guy who causes a lot of visible damage. He uses, like I said, elbows a lot and those open cuts. He's got, I don't know how to describe it. Basically, I feel like his punches do a good amount of physical damage. And Mederos hasn't been cut a ton in his career, so I don't know if he's going to open up super easily. But if he does, which I think he's likely to, it'll help Padilla win a close decision. And things like low kicks, if he's not able to do what he did against Choinski, where he basically makes him fall to his butt 20 times in the fight, low kicks usually don't get counted by the judges as significant as a big jab, So I think Chris Padilla has a better style for winning close decisions, and he's probably the better fighter. And Mederos usually wins close decisions when he fights decent fighters. So I'm gonna go with Chris Padilla. Next fight on the card is Tatiana Suarez versus Lupita Godinez. I'm going Lupita Godinez. I'm a little bit worried because she has lost to decent grapplers before in Verna Jandiroba and Mackenzie Dern. She lost competitive fights, but she pretty clearly beat Mackenzie Dern, in my opinion. That was on that streak where Dern just kept getting robbery victories over and over again. So I don't hate that loss. And then Jandiroba, I think, is really good. She's pretty underrated by Vegas, I guess, because she was not a huge favorite in her last fight, which, by the way, I called was the lock of the year, and she won. So, there you go. But, Tatiana Suarez, I really don't like how she looked in her last two fights against Amanda Lemos and against Zhang Weili. Zhang Weili is someone who I thought had good takedown defense until she fought Valentina Shevchenko, and it looks like she might not have that good of takedown defense. Amanda Lemos has been taken down by fighters before, like Zhang Weili, like Verna Jandiroba, and controlled pretty easily. And Tatiana Suarez could not get any significant control time in those fights after the first round. She definitely should have lost a decision against Lemos. She clearly lost a decision against Zhang Weili. So she's coming off a robbery victory based on failing takedowns. And Lupita Godinez, I think, is much better than Amanda Lemos at punishing people for failing takedowns. If you watch her fight against Julia Plastri, who's a pretty solid prospect, not the best, but a pretty decent one, the fight was pretty even in the grappling early on. And then once Julia Plastri gassed out, Lupita Godinez kind of beat the shit out of her in the third. So, I don't know. I kind of expect her to do that against Suarez, and I think she is a pretty solid grappler, so I think she's going to be able to neutralize the grappling of Suarez and then win on the feet later in the fight. It's one of those fights where Suarez is a slight favorite, but 90% of Tapology is picking her, and I think it's just because Godinez has been kind of buried on the lower prelims for her whole career, and Suarez has been pushed because she got a title fight. She's dating Patchy Mix, but I don't think she's that good. I think she should have lost the fight against Lemos. She got dominated by Zhang Weili. And honestly, since she's come back from her injury, she hasn't looked all that good. I mean, she was able to submit Andrade pretty easily and Montana De La Rosa pretty easily, but those are not very good grapplers. And then in her last two, she's fought Zhang Weili, who, like I said, had horrible takedown defense against Shevchenko, who was able to get stuffed by Tyler Santos before and other flyweights. And then Amanda Lemos, who, like I said, got outgrappled. I mean, Amanda Lemos got, I think, 24 minutes of control time against her by Zhang Weili. And Tatiana Suarez could barely take her down a single time. So I'm going to go with Godinez. Next fight of the card, Mateusz Gamrot versus Esteban Ribovics. I'm going to go with Gamrot. I think he's really good. I think Ribovics is a little bit overrated. Not that people are forgetting that he lost to Nasrat, and he probably definitely should have won that decision, but I don't think Nasrat is nearly as good as Gamrot. They're kind of 4 tiers away, in my opinion, of skill. And then all of other Esteban Ribovics' other performances have come against not very good fighters, and he's been in wars. Elvis Brenner was landing bombs at him on the second and third round of their fight. Like I said, Nasrat had a lot of success. Zellhuber dropped him in the second round. And other than almost getting finished, Zellhuber was having a really good fight. He was able to finish McKinney, but Esteban Ribovics is not a very good finisher. Gamrot has very good survivability, and Gamrot is a very, very good wrestler, and against Ludovic Klein, he made that pretty clear. Ludovic Klein is a very good grappler too, and Gamrot was able to take him down and control him for the whole fight. And Ribovics' style kind of leaves him open to getting taken down. He does use spacing pretty well. His footwork's not bad, but he does punch with his feet a lot. He steps into a lot of his strikes, and the ones where he doesn't, his hips aren't moving at all. He's not moving laterally a ton, where he's on the front foot, which helps him get clipped by people like Nasrat and Zellhuber, and it also helps him have his hips really, end up close to his opponent, and let him get taken down pretty easily. So I think Gamrot is going to have a very similar fight to the one he had against Ludovic Klein, where he just takes him down and holds him down and beats him up from guard and half guard. We haven't seen Esteban Ribovics really off of his back He did beat Luque Radjabov, but I think, wasn't that fight a robbery or like a very close decision? Oh no, he lost to Luque Radjabov. That's right. So yeah, Luque Radjabov is not nearly as good as Gamrot. So I'm gonna go with Luque Radjabov might be better on the feet, but Gamrot's not terrible. Like, he had good competitive fights with Dan Hooker and Arman Sarukian. I mean, dude, he's like the like right below the guys up top of the division, in my opinion, in Gamrot. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Gamrot. I think he should win this pretty easily. Ribovics isn't much of a finisher, and he's gonna need to keep the fight on the feet or get a finish to win. And I don't know if he's capable of doing that against someone as good as Gamrot. Next fight of the card, Kevin Holland versus Randy Brown. I'm going to go with Randy Brown. I think he's pretty solid. He's improved a ton. He's got good power. I think he's in his prime, even though he's kind of old. Yeah, against Dalby, he looked really good. I thought he looked good against Brian Battle. Definitely should have won that fight. And I don't really know what Kevin Holland can do that people have done to beat Randy Brown before. I don't think he's going to finish him. I mean, he could knock him out. Holland's got underrated power. But he hasn't, I feel like he hasn't knocked anyone out in like 6 years, like since the Ponzinibbio fight. He landed some good punches against Gunnar Nelson, and he was able to finish Luque early, but those are guys who, have like pretty clear flaws in their game, especially Luque recently. Gunnar Nelson doesn't move his head a ton. He's more lateral footwork, so he's able to catch him pretty easily, especially with having a longer range. He's not going to have a longer range than Randy Brown. Randy Brown's pretty strong in the clinch. He was able to like have some pretty good moments of success against Brian Battle. He's got good low kicks, which Kevin Holland doesn't deal with super well. And a lot of the times when Randy Brown gets caught, it's in like a close exchange or like an extended exchange, like when Bonfim ended a combo with a knee up the middle with the collar ties. And Holland doesn't really do shit like that anymore. Like, he did that against Ponzinibbio, but not really since then. Even against Gunnar Nelson, like a lot of the moments where he was able to crack Gunnar Nelson were like one big strike per exchange, not like throw a 1-2 slip and then throw an uppercut, or like Dalby was able to catch Randy Brown by just getting like in the pocket and throwing like a 6-punch combination and landing with the last one. So Holland doesn't really do that. Randy Brown, I think, is better at distance on the feet. He's got more power, which makes him more dangerous in the pocket. Kevin Holland definitely has a better chin, but he does get dropped in fights. He got dropped against Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, who is a lot sloppier than Randy Brown, a lot less accurate, and probably doesn't have that much more power. So I think Randy Brown is going to be able to just tag him with 1-2s, and then while they're at a distance, he's going to land like good low kicks. And Holland really doesn't push his grappling super well. Like most of his finishes, I mean, there was a streak for a while, if you remember, like against Dolidze and against Rainer Ritter, and someone else. Like anytime Holland like ended up in a bad position in the grappling, he kind of just gave up. He was able to get the submission over Mikhail Oleksiejczuk off his back, which is pretty good. But other than that, like usually when he hits the ground, he's not super aggressive. Kind of the same thing with Gunnar Nelson. Anytime he was able to get position on Gunnar Nelson, he was not very aggressive with it. And he went back to his feet a lot of the time too. So I don't really know where he's going to have success in this fight other than maybe landing a big punch. And he hasn't done that in like 5 years. So I'm going to take Randy Brown to win. Probably by decision, but probably by decision. I don't think he's going to get a finish. Next up the card, we got Patricio Pitbull versus Aaron Pico. I'm going Aaron Pico. I thought he looked incredible against Lauren Murphy until he got knocked out, which, he did get knocked out, but I think this is a matchup where if someone's going to get knocked out, it's going to be Patricio Pitbull. If you watch Patricio Pitbull's fight against, what's his name? From Ryzen. The guy that knocked out Vugard Karamov from his back. What the hell is his name? It's going to come to me, I promise. Oh, yeah, Chihiro Suzuki. Yeah. Like I said for my prediction for the Yair Rodriguez fight with Patricio Pitbull, he has Patricio Pitbull, because he's so technical with like his karate stuff and he's very in and out and like not staying in the pocket. Anytime he fights someone who's really dynamic, who throws spinning shit or extended combinations or comes from weird angles, he gets cracked and he gets hurt. We saw that with him getting dropped against Yair. We saw that with Suzuki, and Aaron Pico is like that, but he's got a lot more power than these guys. I mean, Suzuki's pretty powerful, don't get me wrong, but Aaron Pico does have a ton of power. He's really clean with the boxing. He's technical, and he throws a lot of dynamic shit. Like, he comes from boxing angles. He throws spinning elbows and shit. He gets hit by spinning elbows as well, I guess. But yeah, and then he's also, I think, would easily out-grapple Patricio Pitbull. Like, I think he could take him down and hold him down. Sergio Pettis had success, in the feet and on the grappling, or on the feet and with the grappling against Pitbull. And yeah, I really don't think Pitbull. I think Pitbull is like far more washed. I don't think Aaron Pico's washed. I don't know if he's necessarily at his prime, but I thought he looked really good against Laurel Murphy. Yeah, I don't know. Pitbull like doesn't really have a ton against him other than landing a big punch, and he's not really like a land a big punch kind of guy, He's very much like minimize the volume, trying to get extended exchanges, try to gas your opponent out by using good footwork to make them miss. Whereas Pico is a lot better at like imposing his will, using the wrestling if he needs it, using the striking if he needs it, landing the big punch if he needs to land a big punch. And Pitbull doesn't really have that. So I think Pico is just going to find his chin. I think in the first round. I think that Pitbull's going to get backed up against the fence. Pico's going to throw some leg kicks. Pitbull's probably going to try to time a punch on a kick, or as Pico's coming in, and Pico's going to come off at an angle and find like an uppercut or a big lead hook or something and chin Pitbull in the first round. So yeah. Next fight of the card, Cub Swanson versus Nate Landwehr. I'm going to go with Nate Landwehr. I actually thought he's looked pretty solid recently. I know he didn't win the fight against Morgan Charrier, but Charrier is like a decently technical striker, and Nate Landwehr was up 2 rounds against him in the striking. He didn't look good against Doo Choi, but I think Doo Choi looked pretty solid. The only problem is he hasn't fought since that fight, so I don't know if he's, that was just a fluke or whatever, or maybe Nate Landwehr is really bad all of a sudden, but yeah. Against Jamal Emmers, once Jamal Emmers started to slow down in the first round, Nate Landwehr was able to survive and finish him. And Cub Swanson, I think he's old enough where he's probably going to start to slow down towards the end of his fight. We saw him get a little bit sloppier in the third round of his fight with Billy Quarantillo. Quarantillo slowed down a ton too, which helped Cub Swanson land that big punch. But I don't think Nate Landwehr's is, not that Billy Quarantillo is shit or dumb or anything, it just, Cub Swanson had one combination the whole fight. It was the left hook, straight right hand, over and again. It threw 3-2 over and over again. It kept landing, and then finally in the third round it landed clean on the chin and knocked him out. And I don't really think Nate Landwehr is going to have that. And I also don't think Billy Quarantillo would be up 2 rounds against Morgan Charrier or Nate Landwehr. And he was arguably up, I think the judges had him up 2 rounds against Cub Swanson in that fight. So, yeah. And Nate Landwehr is way more dangerous than Billy Quarantillo. So, I think he could get a finish, but I think he'll get a finish late, is my guess. He could get a finish early. He is dangerous early. He was able to finish Jamal Emmers in the first round. He's finished other guys in the first round before, too. But I think he's too dangerous for too long for Cub Swanson to survive 3 rounds. And I don't think Cub Swanson's easily going to get a finish, because even though he had basically a free 3-2 whenever he wanted it, it still took him, 2 full rounds plus a bit to finish Quarantillo. So I'm going to go with Landwehr. I think he'll cut a good promo, and then his next fight is going to be in the Apex against like a Contender Series debutante. So next on the card, Dominick Reyes versus Johnny Walker. I'm going to go with Dominick Reyes. Both these guys kind of have like a similar flaw in their game, or kind of like the reverse of their flaw. Dominick Reyes, he can't strike moving forward at all. We saw this against Ulberg. As soon as Ulberg started moving back, I guess he was doing that the whole fight, but as Ulberg was moving back, Dominick Reyes had no success striking because he can't strike on the front foot. He's always that pull counter, that step back counter with the left hand, and if he can't land that, he's really going to struggle against people. But he is really good off the back foot. He's got almost all of his knockouts, I think, are off the back foot. And Johnny Walker, he's kind of similar in that he can't strike off the back foot at all, but he's pretty solid in the front foot. The only problem is Johnny Walker doesn't really do anything. So if Dominick Reyes is fighting off the back foot, he can land that big left hand and finish Johnny Walker, who is really chinny, in the way that he finished Chris Weidman and Jared Cannonier and Dustin Jacoby and Nikita Krylov. Like, the way he finished all those people, he can do that against Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker isn't finishing people anymore. And if Dominick Reyes decides to fight on the front foot for some reason, he gets his confidence up, I don't think he's going to finish him because he doesn't finish people. And Johnny Walker's bad off the back foot. And even on the front foot, Johnny Walker's not that good. Like I said, he's not finished people. He's all a jab, a low kick. People are talking about this fight like, oh man, this fight is fireworks. It's a guaranteed first round finish. It's not. It really isn't. If Johnny Walker fights patiently, Reyes is not going to be able to land anything really on the front foot. And Walker doesn't get finishes anymore. People talk about, I guess he did finish Zhang Mingyang by... You know what's some bullshit? Is I feel like people give Adesanya against Pereira in the first fight and Sean O'Malley against Chito Vera in the first fight so much fucking slack for getting kicked in the perennial nerve, and no one gives a shit that Zhang Mingyang was checking every low kick until one hit him in the perennial nerve, and then he wasn't able to fight. Maybe it's because he doesn't speak English and he hasn't been able to give his side of that, but he clearly got kicked in the perennial nerve and then couldn't walk anymore. That's why he lost. Zhang Mingyang was having his way with Johnny Walker that whole fight until that moment. So, yeah, I don't think Walker's really all that good. Dominick Reyes, I don't think he's great either. I just think he has that one good element of his game where he can find a finish, and Walker doesn't really have that. So I'm going to pick Dominick Reyes. I think I just called him Johnny Reyes, but I'm going to pick Dominick Reyes. I think he'll just find a finish in the first round. I think Walker's just going to walk into a straight left. He doesn't fight with the biggest brain. Whenever things don't go his way when he's fighting the front foot, which I don't think they will, he does something dumb, like how he faked the injury against Magomed Ankalaev and then jumped up into a flying knee. And people post that, and they don't post 20 seconds later where he got knocked out in the same position that he ended up in. So yeah, I'm going to pick Dominick Reyes. Oh wait, no, those are from two different fights. The first fight where Johnny Walker did fake the injury and throw the flying knee, he did get finished right after, but it was by an illegal knee. So never mind. Whatever. You know what I mean. Johnny Walker does dumb shit when he's not winning. So, and Dominick Reyes will probably win in the parts where he does dumb shit. Next fight of the card, Curtis Blaydes versus Josh Hokit. I'm picking Curtis Blaydes. I have no reason to pick Josh Hokit. I think he definitely could win, but I don't know why. The reason why I'm thinking about picking him is because when I don't like a heavyweight, or when I don't like someone, they usually win their next fight. And I think Josh Hokit's fucking annoying. He's playing a character, sure, but he is definitely, he's trying to be annoying, so, you can't get mad at me for calling him annoying. But he doesn't look that good. He looks really not technical. He's sloppy. He hasn't been able to implement his grappling in a very successful way against anyone good. He hasn't really fought anyone good. So I don't really know why you'd pick him. Curtis Blaydes is solid, but he looked really bad in his last fight, which I don't like. He also looked pretty bad against Tom Aspinall in the rematch. And Curtis Blaydes kind of has like Derek Lewis syndrome, where he's getting to the point in his career where he has no footwork and he can't really move very well. So he kind of needs the other person to make like a big mistake and just get hit by a punch, or end up on their back. But he was able to do that fine. Okay, so if you look at Curtis Blaydes' last five fights actually, he arguably should have lost all 5 of them. The Kuniev decision, probably, I gave it to him, but it could have gone to Kuniev for sure. Aspinall got smoked by in a minute. Gilton admitted he was getting dominated in the first round, found a fluke finish in the second round. Pavlovich dominated him. And then before that was Aspinall has the knee injury 20 seconds in the fight. So it's like, and then before that, he's fighting Chris Daukaus and Rosenstrike. He's looking better in those fights, but Blaydes hasn't looked amazing recently. It's just Josh Hokit. I have no reason to pick him. He hasn't looked proven at all. This could be one of those moments where we find out the new generation of heavyweights is just so much better than the old generation that, they get an easy win. But I really don't think this new generation of heavyweights is anything exceptional. They haven't shown any, good talent. Like Mick Parkin was a decent prospect out of this generation, and he got beaten by Tabora. Jornada Diniz got beaten by Tabora. Spivak's beating guys still. I don't know. I don't really think this generation is like anything special. I don't think Josh Hokit's anything special. He probably should be at light heavyweight, which maybe means he should win. But I'm going to pick Blaydes. Co-main event, we've got Azamat Murzakanov versus Paulo Costa. I'm going to go with Paulo Costa, and there's one main reason, and it's because Paulo Costa is undefeated against southpaws, because against southpaws, he can use his big weapon, which is that rear body kick, and we saw him dominate Johnny Hendricks with it, dominate Roman Kopylov with it. Roman Kopylov couldn't throw anything, because anytime he came in close, he would get hit with a big body kick from the rear side, and he had nothing to do about it. Murzakanov does have, good counters against kicks. We haven't seen him knock anyone out off of a counter of a kick, but the way he throws 1-2s is probably good against open side, body kicks. Murzakanov just isn't that good. In the moments in the fight, like against Radtke, he wasn't having any success until he landed the knockout punch. Against Ribeiro, there wasn't anything, not a ton happened in that fight, but he wasn't like dominating until he found the finish, and Ribeiro sucks. Alonzo Benefield, kind of the same thing. It was a close fight until he found the finish. Tafon and Chukwi, definitely. Tafon and Chukwi was up 2 rounds. In the third, Murzakanov needed a finish, and he found it. But Tafon and Chukwi fights very similarly to Paulo Costa. He's got that upright, orthodox, like Muay Thai stance, where you're light on the lead leg and you throw the rear leg hard. And he's having a ton of success against Azamat Murzakanov. Murzakanov hasn't really improved since then. He hasn't looked that much better. And Paulo Costa has only been finished by punches only been finished once, and it was against Adesanya when Adesanya came in with a boob, and then Adesanya never finished anyone ever again. But yeah, Paulo Costa, I just think he's too. I'm sorry, Azamat Murzakanov is just too shit to beat someone who's way more skilled than him. And then you're kind of relying on a finish. I know he's finished everyone. It's just I really don't think he's all that good unless he gets a finish. And Paulo Costa is not finishable. And Paulo Costa goes from looking terrible against any orthodox fighter, and then he looks incredible the next fight. Like, let's see, what was his fight before with Kopylov? The Sean Strickland fight. He had literally nothing for Sean Strickland for 25 minutes of that fight. For 25 minutes, Sean Strickland walked him down and beat him up with jabs and teeps. The next fight, he fights Roman Kopylov. Roman Kopylov is nothing for him. Roman Kopylov is good. Roman Kopylov smoked Chris Curtis. He knocked him out with a second left with a horrible stoppage. But yeah, Roman Kopylov is pretty solid, and he had nothing for Paulo Costa because Paulo Costa has that open side body kick against southpaws. He's going to have that against Murzakanov. And because of that, Murzakanov, I think, will need a finish, and he won't get it because Paulo Costa will be too far ahead, and he's too hard to finish. He's too skilled, especially now that he doesn't have to cut a ton of weight. So yeah, he looked like a zombie at weigh-ins, and he was eating huge punches from Whitaker. Whitaker landed good against Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero landed some huge punches against a super weight drained Paulo Costa and never finished him. So I don't think Murzakanov is going to do it. I'm going to pick Murzakanov. I'm going to pick Paulo Costa to beat Murzakanov, probably by decision, but maybe by like a late round. What could happen is Paulo Costa's up big. He's up clearly 2 rounds. He's beating the shit out of Murzakanov, and then with a minute left in the third round, he lands a big body kick. Murzakanov's like, fuck this, I'm not going to win. I'm just going to go down to this. This hurts too much. So yeah, I'm going to pick Paulo Costa, probably by decision or like a late finish. Main event, we've got my favorite fighter, Yuri Prochazka versus Carlos Ulberg. And for that reason, I will be picking Yuri Prochazka. I always want to pick against him just so I can kind of hedge my happiness. Like if he wins, I'm never going to be upset. But I've pretty much picked him in every fight except for the second Pereira fight. And the Pereira fight is, unique because Prochazka since 2015 has only lost to Alex Pereira. And the only way he's lost is by getting knocked out. So I'm going to pick Prochazka because he's my favorite fighter. There's a couple things that I think he will do good against. There's a couple things I don't like. Ulberg does use that step up, lead low kick. He uses really low kicks, like the low calf kicks, which are the ones that Prochazka had a ton of success against. Pereira had a ton of success against Yuri with. So that does worry me. Ulberg does have good power, especially when he catches his opponent out of position like he did Dominick Reyes, which Yuri does get caught a bit. But Yuri doesn't cut a ton of weight. He doesn't really go out cold. Like against Pereira in the first fight, it was a early stoppage. He got dropped and then immediately head kicked like a minute later after the break in rounds in the second fight. And he didn't even go out cold. He went out. He went out pretty bad. But Pereira needed follow-up shots to finish him. And his recovery has looked really good since then. And he always finishes people. Like even in these fights where he's always behind, he's never had an easy fight in the UFC. In the first round against Volkan Oezdemir, he lost. Then he knocks him out in the second round. Next fight, Dominick Reyes drops him with an up kick. 30 seconds later, he knocks him out. Glover Teixeira is beating him up on the feet, beating him in the grappling, almost submits him with an arm triangle half a dozen times, almost gets his back, gets him out a couple times, lands big ground and pound shots, and with 20 seconds left in the fight, Yuri submits him. After that, who else? I'm trying to think. Rakic, first round, beating up Yuri Prochazka with low kicks. Comes back in the second round, finishes him. And that's why I'm going to pick him, because Carlos Ulberg is good. He is technical, but he does gas out. He does break to damage. We saw Kenny Nizuchukwu just eat his strikes for a full round and then finish him in the second. He really hasn't fought anyone that's that tough, that's that hard to finish since Kenny Nizuchukwu, and that's why he's won every fight since then. And even then, he's had really close fights with Volkan Oezdemir. He's had really close fights with Jan Blachowicz. So Europeans he has really close fights with, and for that reason, Prochazka is going to beat him. No, Prochazka against Khalil Roundtree. First 2 rounds he loses. He needs to finish in the third. He goes full war mode and finishes him. And this is a 5-round fight, so he's going to have even more time to have a broken, gas out opponent in front of him. So I'm going to pick Prochazka. I think he's going to find a finish later in the fight. He's only been finished by Pereira since 2015. He's only been lost to Pereira since 2015. Carlos Ulberg isn't Pereira in my opinion. Pereira did have close fights with Blachowicz, I guess. But Pereira's, I think, a lot more dangerous than Ulberg. He finishes almost everyone he's fought at light heavyweight. And Ulberg doesn't really. He goes to a decision pretty often, especially against decent opponents. And Prochazka's a lot better off the front foot than Dominick Reyes is. And that's how Reyes got caught and finished. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Prochazka. I think by a late finish, I think he will gas out and finish Ulberg similarly to how he finished Roundtree, similar to how Kenny Nizuchukwu finished Ulberg. So yeah, those are my picks for this card. I'm going to go through boxing real quick. I'm going to pick, what's his name? Arslanbek Makhmudov versus Tyson Fury, because I think Tyson Fury is a little bit washed and overrated. I think people are giving way too much credit for the Usyk fights because I don't really think Usyk has fought anyone at heavyweight. Tyson Fury almost in my scorecard, lost to Francis Ngannou, worse than he lost to, Alexander Usyk, which I don't like. Makhmudov, I think, is a little underrated because, lost to Caballero. People are like, oh, Caballero, never heard of him. He lost to Caballero? Bad luck. But Caballero is really fucking good. I think he would smoke Tyson Fury. And Makhmudov is being way more active than Fury. He's fighting better competition, if you ignore Usyk, I guess. So, yeah, I think Makhmudov gets that done. I'm going to pick Conor Benn to beat Prograis. I just think Prograis is really washed. Conor Benn I don't even think is that good. He's improved a lot. Like, I thought he was way worse than Eubank for their first fight, and he kind of just or Eubank kind of just let him go into war, and then he came back and beat Eubank. So he looked good there, and if he's improving, I think he'll beat Prograis pretty easily, because Prograis is regressing a ton. He looked, ever since the Haney fight, he didn't even take any damage in the Haney fight. He just had nothing, and I think he's just kind of cooked mentally because of that. Let's see. I think Fraser Clark, I don't know, the rest of that card isn't that good. I think Fraser Clark will lose, not win. I will pick JPH. Let's see, what's the other card? Tension, I'm going to pick Tension versus, what's his name? Juan Francisco Estrada. I'm going to pick Suboy on that card. Yeah, I think all the Japanese guys in that card win, I bet. They're all pretty big favorites. But I'm going to pick Tension as an underdog. I just think he's better than Estrada. I think Estrada is a little bit washed, and people haven't really noticed it yet. And I think Tension has, the right style to beat him up. The reason why he was able to keep it so close with, Bam, well, one, he was much, more in his prime against Bam in that fight. But also, Bam doesn't have the power and it does come from a lot of angles. I just think that Tension's going to crack Estrada and finish him, and I don't think Bam has that ability, at least in the first 6 rounds, if he hasn't beaten someone up yet. PFL card, I'll pick Sergio Pettis against Mitchell McKee. I think that's fair. I'll pick probably Jordan Newman. I think Kavlov will beat Raytheon Stotts. I think Braga will probably win. I think Viviani Araujo will win. I think Jenna Bishop will win. Romanov will probably beat... Hasn't Romanov fought Nescamento before? I don't know. I'll pick Romanov. That card actually low-key. I thought that card was going to be good. I'm looking back at it. It kind of sucks ass. And then the Ryzen card, sorry. I'm going to pick Rajabali Shedulia versus Yuta Kubo. This is fucked up matchmaking. I don't know who on earth decided to put... I get this is kind of like a tune-up fight or whatever. Or maybe this might be, Shedulia's last fight in Ryzen. But Yuta Kubo is on a pretty bad streak of getting whooped on. On that New Year's card, Shedulia beat the fuck out of him. Wait, did Delpic? Oh yeah, they did have a fucking eye poke in that fight. So he did, he technically didn't lose to Delpic, so maybe he will beat Shedulia in the rematch, but I don't think so. Shedulia beat the fuck out of him in that fight. And Yuta Kubo was only older, so I don't love that matchmaking, but I think Sabatello will probably win, unfortunately. I think Ryo Fukuda will win. I think Taiyo Asahisa will win. I think Makoto Takahashi will win. I think Zulu is kind of... he's never, exceptional. He actually had a pretty good performance against Horiguchi. I just think he's only older. He's only more washed. And Makoto... What's it? Shinryu? Is that his name? I thought it was... Yeah, Shinryu. He looks like he's improving. Anything else in that? Seiyu Inoue, I think he'll win. Yeah, I think those are all the people I know on that card. Yeah, the Ryo Fukuda versus Azizbek Temirov, I think that'll be a really good fight, but I think Fukuda will win it pretty easily. He's just too dangerous in the feet. So yeah, those are my picks for all the fights that are this weekend. I just got an email that I got rejected from a job application, so that's cool. Yeah, those are my fights from this weekend. Let me know what you think of my picks. I've been live tweeting the whole weekend, starting with the Tension fight, which is Friday night at 3 a.m., so Saturday morning, I guess. So follow me on Twitter, links in the description. I'll make a recap video of the weekend of fights Saturday night after the UFC event. So I'll probably miss the stuff that happens after as far as that recap video, but I'll keep tweeting about that. So again, follow me on Twitter, links in the description. Like the video, share the video, subscribe if you want to hear more. I've got all my predictions and recaps going back to beginning of last year on the channel. There's playlist for that. Yeah, that is all. Thank you for listening. The audio is better because I'm on my old phone, so for now the audio will be improved, but we'll see if I can find a longer term solution for that. Yeah, like I said, like the video, share the video, subscribe if you want to see more. Follow me on Twitter. That is all. Thank you for listening, and hopefully if I come back to this and Yuri lost, I'll be very upset.